welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about the Eahora Juliet Pro 2. Great bike, we've ridden it, we've reviewed it. Now, how can we make it better? A couple of things that will make life better and more enjoyable with this bike. Less flats. Although it does come with the very high-end Ultraverse type tires, in this case labeled as Black Cat, we are going to be installing Tannis liners in it today to help reduce the occurrence of flats, essentially. The other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing different gearing on the rear wheel. From the factory, it ships with a 14 to 28 range, 7-speed freewheel. We are going to be replacing that freewheel with an 11 through 28. 11 being the operative number. That is the smallest cog on the freewheel. That is what allows you to keep a more comfortable cadence while you're pedaling at higher speeds, say 20 miles an hour and above. A lot of bikes, most e-bikes in fact, come under geared, which means once you get to about 15, 18 miles an hour, you're just pedaling so quickly you really cannot keep up with the bike. Your pedaling is not propelling the bike at all. All it's doing is fooling the cadence sensor, which allows the bike to propel itself. Myself, lifelong cyclist, I like to pedal. When I'm pedaling my bike, I like to be able to provide some propulsion to it. Being as under-geared as a lot of these bikes are, I just find that it's not doing much. It's only fooling the cadence sensor. So by dropping 3 teeth on the smallest cogs from a 14 tooth down to an 11 tooth, it changes the gear ratio. Now, we're going to test that out, and if that's enough, then we'll leave it that way. And if not, we can always increase the size of the front sprocket. Stay tuned.
All right, pedal assistance 2, 7th gear, moving along 18 miles an hour. You see this, the speed at which I'm pedaling. I really can't go a whole lot quicker. So, gear number 7, pedal assistance 2, moving along about 18 miles an hour. I'm just about topped out on my cadence. I really can't spin any faster than this.
One of the ways that we are going to make an improvement to the Eahora Juliet Pro 2 is through the installation of these Tannis tire and tube liners. These are quite thick. They are designed that they will reduce the likelihood of having a flat. On a bike with such a tremendous range, it's conceivable that you might be a long distance from home, so you really wouldn't want to be 75 or 100 miles from home and incur a flat. With these, you are much less likely to do so. One other improvement that we're going to make is the swapping of the stock gearing. The stock gearing is 14 on the smallest cog, 28 on the largest. We're going to be switching that to an 11/28. So what that will be doing is when we are in 7th gear and rolling out 25, 30 miles an hour, we're going to reduce the ratio at which we're pedaling, so that tends to lead to ghost pedaling with the stock gearing. By switching to this, we're going to slow our cadence down substantially. So when you first pick these Tannis liners up, you notice that, yeah, they've got a little bit of weight to them. Well, are they adding a lot of weight to the bike? Well, let's find out exactly how much one weighs. Putting it on the scale here, I can see that it weighs about 15 ounces, just under 1 pound. All right, first challenge, we want to get the bike in a position that we can work on it. So I've got it inverted here. I'm going to disconnect the connection to the front motor to start with. We'll remove the front wheel, pull the tire off, of course, and then remove the tire from the rim. From there, we're going to remove the tube. We're going to be moving to a 20 by 3 inch tube. Even though this is a 20 by 4 tire, with the Tannis liner you go down by one size. So we're going to go ahead and do that. You can see that in this particular case, I've got the Ultraverse 20 by 3s ready to go. Those are the tires we're going to be using, the tubes we're going to be using with these tires. These are a fairly hardy tube, and even though we have the liners, let's make sure we're still using as strong of a tube as possible. Using a 21 millimeter ratchet, we're going to go ahead and loosen this front wheel. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. We got that loose. Loosen up the other side. Okay, there we go. Loosen that up. I'm going to disconnect the motor here and then pull off that front wheel. Okay, we've gone ahead and got the motor disconnected. Do want to go ahead and back out these Allen heads on the torque plates. Alright, we've removed the washer, the nut, the torque plate. We're going to go ahead and pull this front wheel off the bike. Move this motor cable up and lift up and out on the front wheel. Now that we've got the wheel off, I'm going to ahead and remove the valve cap, let the air out of the tire, and remove the tire and the tube. I generally like to lay down a rubber mat when I'm doing this on a hard surface so that we don't eat up the axle at all. The Ultraverse or Allscape type tire, in this particular instance it's labeled as a black cap, but it's the same tire. They can be a little much to work with for people who aren't experienced with doing so, but to be honest, as long as you let all the air out of the tires and you have a good set of tire levers, removing them from the rim is really not that difficult of a process, just like a standard bike wheel really. Once you've broken the bead, just run your finger all the way around. So with that said, I'm going to get the tire lever in here, free that up, run my hand around. Let's change the angle of the camera here. Just run my hand all the way around. And there you have it. We have broke the bead all the way around. I'm going to go ahead now, remove the tube, and then take actually the entire tire off the rim while I seat the Tannis liner. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove that tube. Pull that out. There we go. We're going to set that aside. We're going to remove the tire from the rim. See, they're not that hard to work with. We're going to go ahead and set that down. Okay, now that we have the tire itself, we're going to go ahead and position the Tannis liner inside before we try to set the tube in there. Take your time, just work this around, it'll pop right in. Once it's seated in there, you can see that it's pretty well positioned within the tire. Now we're going to go ahead and take our tubes and we're going to set those up and we're going to run that around the inside of the tire. Again, these are the Ultraverse tubes. Good heavy duty tube. I recommend spend a couple extra dollars on your tires and tubes. You won't regret it. Alright, before I go ahead and put this in here, what I want to do is I want to get 3 or 4 pounds of air in this tire. It's going to be a lot easier, in this tube before I try to seat this into the Tannis liner. Okay, got about 4 psi in this 20 by 3 tube going into the Tannis liner, which then goes into the 20 by 4 Black Cat tire. Alright, you can see that we've got that positioned in there now. I'm going to go ahead and install this back onto the rim. This is where you want to make sure, number one, you're not pitching anything. It's going to be
going to be virtually impossible to pinch this tube, but you'll see that as this sets up onto the rim, the tube is pretty well fully encased once it seats on the rim itself. All right, once you have the tire seated on one side of the rim, you're going to come around using your fingers and just sort of tuck that Tannis liner in around the tube 360 degrees as you work your way around the rim, making sure that it is all positioned and seated. As we come around to this last section, I just want you to take note that the Tannis liner is tucked in all the way around. We're going to take this last couple inches and tuck them in so that you can see what's going on. Now it's fully tucked in 360 degrees. Now we're just going to follow that around and we're going to seat the tire as we go. I see a lot of people trying to use tire irons to reseat the wheel. As you see, I'm just coming around to the last little bit here, but we've seated this by hand all the way around, just using my thumb and pushing till we get that to seat. Now, once you've got it on here, you're going to put a little bit of air in. Check the seating of the tire to the rim all the way around. You want it to be a uniform distance all the way around on this side and on the other side as well. Otherwise, you get a little bit of hop to your wheel. People sometimes struggle with that. Put 5 pounds of air in at a time. Make sure it's seated, bounce it, try to move it around. Once you've done so, I think you'll find that it goes much easier. Okay, got the tire nice and uniformly mounted. Got 32 pounds of air in the tire. Inflate to whatever you prefer. Myself, even though these are fat tire type 20x4s, I still like to make sure I have 32 psi in them. I ride mostly on the road and I find that to be much better. Okay, front wheel is ready to be remounted. We're going to go ahead, drop this back into the forks, reassemble the torque plates, the washers, make sure we center it into the disc brake, and reconnect the motor. Okay, front wheel is back on. We've gone ahead and installed the torque plates, just finger tightened the nuts, centered the brakes, reconnected the motor, and reconnected the tether for the motor. We're just going to go ahead and tighten this down now. Alright, now make sure you get these good and tight. This is a 2-motor bike, and you do produce quite a bit of torque on this front end. Alright, now we're going to be moving along to the back end, which will be essentially a very similar process. Alright, the back end of the bike here also uses a 21mm, so we'll bust that loose. In here, you're going to notice that you have a washer. You have one of these torque washers. You've got a zip tie here, a zip tie here, a zip tie here, and up here. We're going to go ahead and disconnect the motor and leave that brake line in place. And we've gone ahead and we've loosened the axle nut on the drive side, as far as the pedal drive side. With the zip ties snapped, we're going to go ahead and open up this connection for the motor. Just going to back this off both directions, and then once we've got it free, just give it a pull, and that'll open that up. There we go. Now we are free to remove the back wheel. Before you remove your back wheel, as I mentioned, we have an axle nut, we have a washer, we have one of these slotted torque washers. This is on the brake side. On the derailleur side, however, we have the axle nut, we have a washer, but if you take note, the torque washer here is inside the chainstay. So you see it right in here where I'm pointing to. That is going to be something you're going to want to take note of prior to removing. When it goes back in, it should go on the inside of that chainstay. Back wheel off, going to be a very similar process. We're going to go ahead and remove that valve cap. We're going to air down the tire, break the seal, remove the tire and tube from the rim,
install the tannis liner into the tire and liner and tube get put together and then reseated onto the rim on the rear. Okay, we have got the tube inside the liner inside the tire, and a nice uniform bead all the way around, and it's remounted. The next thing that we are going to be tackling is we are going to be removing this rear freewheel. I know it looks like a cassette. This is a one-piece unit. It is a 7-cog freewheel. We will be replacing the freewheel that is on there that has a 14 by 28 gearing with a unit from Drift Maniacs. This is an 11 by 28. In order to remove this, there's a couple things we're going to need. First of all, we're going to have to remove this torque washer, set that aside. Then we're going to remove this freewheel. Now, this is a freewheel removal tool. We'll use this to loosen things up. One thing of note, some e-bikes will bring the power in through this side, which can be a little bit difficult. This is a unit that comes apart, so if you need to, you can slide it over the wire, then slide this piece back in the other side. Now, on this particular bike, it's not a concern, so we're just going to put it in here, use a nut, and loosen that freewheel. All right, what we're going to do now, we're going to take our freewheel removal tool, position it within the freewheel. We're going to position our wrench on here, and we are going to apply appropriate pressure to bust that loose. This is a virtually new bike, so I assure you they do not normally come loose quite that easily. See, I told you this is a one piece. It looks like a cassette that you would expect to see on a typical road bike, but it is a 7-cog one-piece freewheel. We'll go ahead and set that guy aside. We're going to take our Drift Maniacs. We're going to put a little bit of grease on here, and then we're going to thread the new one on. All right, we've got our white lithium grease applied. We're going to go ahead, thread this on. Righty tighty. Then we're going to take our freewheel tool, position our wrench, and then we're going to torque this down. The beauty of this, as you pedal, assuming you pedal, it will get tighter as you go. We want to go ahead and reposition our torque washer on there, and then put this back on the bike. All right, we've dropped that into the frame, taking note to make sure that our torque nut, our torque washer I should say, is positioned within the groove and the dropout here. And we've gone ahead and we've done the same thing on the sprocket side. So now we're going to go ahead, you notice that everything spins nice and freely, etc. From here what we'll do is we'll go ahead, torque these up, reconnect these tie wraps. Okay, back wheel remounted, everything torqued up, we got the zip ties reinstalled, got the motor reconnected. Let's go ahead and get this up and ready and take it for a ride. All right, there she sits, the Eahora Juliet Pro 2. Now that we have upgraded and installed tannis liners in both front and rear wheels, and we have upgraded the gearing on the rear freewheel to an 11 by 28 Drift Maniac to improve the gear ratio. Let's take it out and give it a test.
Now, with the gearing changed, I am pedal assistance 2, 7th gear, pedaling at a much more acceptable cadence in order to keep my speed. Now is a true test. I'm going to kick this into pedal assistance 3. I'm now at 25 miles an hour, and I'm keeping up with the bike. I'm not ghost pedaling. 28 miles an hour. Pretty good. I probably cannot go to 4. Let's find out. I'm in pedal assistance 4 and I'm now pedaling at 30 miles an hour. But coming up on a stop sign. So we're gonna slow down here. All right, 7th gear, pedal assistance 4, a little bit more open stretch of road. All right, 31 miles an hour, and I'm pedaling. I wouldn't want to pedal at any faster cadence, but I am pedaling now 32.5 miles an hour. It's much better than it was, much better. All right, we've got a little bit of an open stretch of road here. I've got the battery and dual motor. We're gonna pedal this thing up to whatever speed it takes us to, or till we reach the next stop sign. I'm already at 28 miles an hour, 30, 33, 38. I am pedaling at 40 miles an hour. My goodness.
All right, well, what have we learned? We have upgraded the gearing on the Eahora Juliet Pro 2. We have replaced the rear freewheel with what was originally the stock 14 to 28 freewheel. For those of you who don't understand what that means, the smallest cog here has 14 teeth with a range as it moves out to the largest cog of 28 teeth. The largest being your first gear, gear number 1, and as you switch gears eventually up to gear number 7 would be this smallest cog. It would be the most difficult of the gears, and this would be the easiest. Now, the smaller the gear, the quicker you're pedaling. The higher number of teeth, easier to pedal from the beginning, but you run out of steam very quickly because your ratio, your cadence just becomes too quick. I was finding, again, as a lifelong cyclist, that the 14 tooth, I was just running out of steam. My cadence was becoming far too quick after about 18, 20 miles an hour. I typically switch these out on most e-bikes only because it allows you to get much better range. How does it do that? Well, instead of you strictly relying on the bike for power after 18 or 20 miles an hour, you're able to provide some propulsion. So it is less like fooling the cadence sensor and you actually pedaling the bike. Now, this smallest cog, as I mentioned, is a 14 tooth. We went to an 11. Well, why not just go to a 6 or a 5 or something like that? Well, due to the diameter here in the center of your axle, that's a 11 tooth of about as small as you can go. Well, what if I need taller gearing yet? Then you have to replace the front chain wheel. I want to say from memory that the Eahora, I believe, ships with about a 44-45 tooth front freewheel. I have seen people go with 60s, 75 if they do a lot of cycling. After riding it, I'm going to say that up to about 33, 34 miles an hour, it's comfortable. Can I keep up after 33 miles an hour? Yes, I can. I can keep up to about 36 or 37, but it's at a very quick ratio, and I probably wouldn't do it that often. So if I'm finding that I want to do pedaling at that type of speed, I more than likely will replace the front chain wheel. Now, will I replace just the front chain wheel? No. It has 135 millimeter cranks, which are very, very short. You're making a very, very small revolutions there. I'd probably go with like a 170 to have a more comfortable pedal stroke. But overall, I will say moving to the 11x28 was a huge improvement. If you'd like to do this, I suggest watching this video before you try. If you don't feel comfortable, of course, visit your local bike shop. They can help you out with this. Thank you. Like, subscribe. See you next time.